Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar today. My name is Kim Bussey. I'm the Key Relationship Manager here with Omnia, and I am joined today by our SVP of Operations, Wendy Schaefer. Wendy, why don't you take a moment and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Wendy Schaefer. I am as Kim said, the SVP of Operations here with Omnia. I've been here 20 years, and I'm always like to say I'm also married to a small business owner, so I get where the pieces that go into play when we're trying to figure out how to motivate our top performers, keep them from leaving for the competition. So hopefully we're gonna have a great webinar today and learn a lot.
Absolutely. And we are going to have a great webinar today. We're going to talk about how to keep top performers from the dark side of your competition. And it's all about employee retention and engagement. And we're going to give you some practical tips and tools. And it will be interactive. But before we get started, a couple of housekeeping rules. Our webinar today is being recorded. So if you do not follow us on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, you need to, because you're going to receive some great notifications as well as when this presentation will be available. We will have some downloads at the end, which will also include a copy of our presentation. And at the top of your screen, you see an icon of a person with their hand raised. If I can just get you to raise your hand if you can hear me okay. Also, we're going to ask some questions. We want to know if you agree or disagree with us. If you need us to speak a little louder or speak a little softer, you want us to speed up because we're going too slow or slow it down. And of course, laughter and applause is always appreciated because we cannot see you. We only know that you are here and engaged with us based on your participation. So please stay engaged with us because how are you going to keep your employees engaged and from your competition if you're not listening to our wisdom? And we're going to go ahead and get started with a quote.
Yes. So in the upper right-hand corner there, tell us if you agree or disagree with this quote. Highly engaged employees make the customer experience, disengaged employees break it.
So we see people popping up. Hands are being raised. Agree, agree, agree. I will tell you, Wendy, I absolutely agree with this statement.
I do
And
too.
I actually have a story that goes along with this because due to two disengaged employees, one of which was a manager, I no longer do business with Domino's Pizza. So about 6 months ago, every Friday night is pizza night at our house because when mama gets home on Friday, she doesn't want to cook. So we ordered pizza. It's our family veg out night. And I ordered pizza on the app to be delivered. Two different pizzas. One's a thin crust with meat lovers, add bacon because bacon goes great with everything. And on the other one, a regular pizza with pepperoni and sausage, except for my children. They do not like bacon on their pizza. So we wait, we wait, we wait. The pizza gets there. I open it up and I see bacon all over the pepperoni and sausage pizza. And I saw just a teeny tiny sliver, like maybe a piece of bacon had fallen out of someone's hand as they were carrying it to the other pizza on top of the um, meat lovers pizza. So I call, you know what? Everybody makes mistakes. You know, there's a saying that I live by, especially when it comes to customer service: to err is human, to recover is divine. So we all make mistakes. How do we own it? How do we recover from it? So I called them, and the woman that answered the phone was just in shock that I'd asked them to remake the one pizza. And it wasn't that I was calling going, you made such a mistake and being nasty about it. I was just like, I think that there was a mistake. There shouldn't have been bacon on this pizza. It's all over the pizza. It was not able to be picked off. Would you please remake the pizza? We're even willing to come and drive and pick it up, but would you just remake it for us? And I hear her going in the background, hey, they want us to remake the pizza. They want to remake the pizza. And then the manager comes on the phone and he's like, you want us to really remake this pizza? And I'm like, yes, it's wrong, and I don't see bacon on the other one. That's not a big deal, but my kids. Well, I didn't think it would matter that we gave you an extra free topping. I can't believe you're asking me to remake this pizza. At that point, I was done because obviously I wasn't going to trust them to remake a pizza when they were disengaged for the first time and the manager sent it out wrong. And his excuse was, oh, we gave you a free topping. big deal. But when I read this quote, I was like, oh my gosh, these Domino's employees are disengaged. And how many people are just silently going away and not using a company anymore because of what the employees have done? Because for me, I didn't tweet about it. I didn't put it on social media about how awful Domino's was. I just hung up the phone, said, kids, we're going to have to deal with it, and we're never ordering from Domino's again. So was our family a big money maker for Domino's? Probably not. But I will tell you, I've told people that story, and hence I'm telling everybody on this webinar as well this story. So, yes, I agree. Disengaged employees can break it. And I know this all because of pizza toppings.
Yes, which is why we always order plain cheese pizza in my household.
And you can't mess that up. So before we start talking about how to keep top employees and performers from the dark side, let's talk about three categories that every one of your employees is going to fall into one of them. One is the engaged employee, and this is the employee that you want. They are here. They have studies have shown that engaged employees have 31% higher productivity. They're here and they're working. If they're in a revenue generating role, they typically have 37% higher sales than their peer group. They also have 3 times higher creativity than their peer group. And why is creativity important? Because if they're in a service role or they're in a sales role, any type of customer facing role, that they're hearing input from your customers. You want to hear what they're saying because what you want to know is, are they bringing ideas for product development? Many of our products have been developed because we've had engaged employees who are listening to what our clients want and coming to Wendy and saying, hey, we don't offer this. Can we offer this? Or coming to me and saying they need additional trainings. What can we do to help them? And we love that about our employees because they're our feet on the street, so to speak. So your engaged employees love the company. They have higher creativity. They're always looking for ways to increase revenue and increase that customer experience. And they are brand ambassadors. So your engaged employees are not the employees who are looking at their clock at 4:59 going, come on, 5 o'clock, change, clock change. And they've already got their bags on their desk and their lunch bags on the desk and their name tags in the drawer. They are excited and they share that excitement with friends and with family, with people that they meet, maybe on airplanes and the seat next to them. What do you do? Oh, I work for Omnia. It's great. I love that I work for a company that's all about consulting and we use behavioral assessments and we have helped clients with development and employee engagement, and every day is new. They create that excitement. They typically tend to be your top performers as well. And maybe not the top one or two employees, but your engaged employees are always at the top of your consistency with meeting goals, and they're always at the top with whatever you need me to do, I'm going to do for you, which is the complete opposite of disengaged employees.
Yeah, absolutely. According to Gallup's 2017 Employee Engagement and Retention Survey, statistics show that disengaged employees cost organizations between 450 and 550 billion dollars a year. I mean, this is just crazy. The
Wow.
good news is, I know, the good news is that the survey also showed that 63% of the workforce was engaged in 2017. So that's a pretty high figure. But how do you know if your employees are disengaged, and what are some of the signs that we can look for? The first thing is that they typically aren't meeting their goals. This might be something that's consistently happening or sporadic, but you're kind of watching these people and going, they're missing assignments. Why is that? They also negatively influence others, and often this can be done in a very subtle way. It's hard to detect, and then over time, you're going to see a shift in employees' morale and some negativity that's infecting the workplace. And that can come from disengaged employees. Also, there's a lot of blame shifting that goes on. There's always a reason they didn't meet goals or fulfill expectations, and just a general lack of ownership. So you might hear things like, I didn't finish that project because I have too many things on my plate, or because I never learned to do that, or because some other person or department never got back to me when I needed some information to carry on. So as a manager, this is the time for us to ask some clarifying questions to uncover that root issue. Be specific with the questioning. When did you get the project? When did you start it? How did you prioritize your time? And did you follow up with the person or department that prevented you from moving forward? That way, you can determine what's going on. You might find out that there's a legitimate issue going on that's preventing them from completing jobs, or you may discover that they're simply disengaged from work. But it gives you the insight to form a plan of action. And it also starts to build in some accountability and ownership for that disengaged employee, because at the end of the day, they need to feel connected to the job and organization. And the best way to do that is through accountability, which we're going to talk about some more. Um, Now, also the turnover costs for disengaged employees when people leave are estimated to be between 100% and 300% of the base salary of replaced employees. So it's expensive to let people fall into that category. And now Kim's actually going to talk to us about the people, though, that live between engaged and disengaged employees.
Right, because we tend to think of employees as black and white. They're either engaged or they are disengaged. But what we do know is that there is a third level. These are our conditionally disengaged or passively disengaged employees. And this tends to be a little bit more transitional. Like sometimes they are fully engaged, they're happy, they're, productive, but, they could slip into that conditionally disengaged because they don't feel valued by their managers or they're not coached consistently. Maybe something happens where they completely disagree with the way management handled a situation or a change in jobs. So now they're doing something different that's a poor fit to who they are and their natural behaviors. And now they slide into actively disengaged. But conditionally disengaged or passively disengaged employees can definitely go either way. That's a great thing to know. However, it's also a very dangerous place for 80% of your employees to be. So because you think we've got 10% top performers, 10% low performers, and that as leaders, tends to be the two areas that we give our most attention to. But the other 80% could slide into that passive disengagement. Why is that such a troubling figure and why is that a red flag and an issue to the company? Well, because these are the employees that turn into passive job seekers. So I'm not actively looking for a new job, but if I'm approached and it's a good choice, I'm willing to make the jump. According to a LinkedIn talent survey, only 12% of your employees are aggressively looking for a new job, and those are your actively disengaged employees. So once again, if you think your bottom performers, there are about 10% of them, those are the people that are really looking for a different job. And don't be shocked if some of the people that you consider top performers to be disengaged because it's all about them. And if you don't give me what I want, I walk. There's no loyalty to the company. So you've got that 12%, but another 28% are casually looking. These are typically those passively disengaged employees who are like, something happens and they're like, oh, I just don't, I don't like this. I'm out of here. Maybe it's a transition that's happening, a change in policies, or you updating the system. And the stress of people are like, they're feeling that, oh, okay, I'm going to go look on LinkedIn or I'm going to go talk to someone just in case. But another 45% are willing to be approached by a recruiter by a positive career move. So 12% are actively looking, 28% are casually looking, and 45% aren't really looking, but they're willing to be approached. That now turns into 85% of your workforce that may be willing to change jobs if the right offer comes along. It is critical as managers that we help our employees understand that we need them, that they are critical to our company, and work towards engagement. Because if we're not working towards engagement, then people are going to slowly disappear on us. And it may not be that you can say this one thing happened that causes them to leave. So I said this was going to be interactive. So in the upper left hand box, as a manager, what are some ways that you can engage employees? Maybe it's something that you're currently doing, maybe it's something that a manager has done for you in the past. But go ahead and type those answers in. See, like we've got some recognition. And then while you're typing in that upper right hand box, or upper left hand box, Kim, know your left from your right. Down at
Mhm.
the bottom, what are some ways that you can disengage employees, whether intentionally or unintentionally? And I see ideas coming. So we've got recognition, share ideas, seek out learning opportunities. And I love that. Follow through with it. We've got to give them training in areas that are applicable. Share your ideas with them and vice versa. These are all amazing things. Ask their opinion. Merit based bonuses, yes. Open door questions. Ask their input on a whole host of things. And I absolutely agree with that. Here at Omnia, we will tell people that your voice is heard. If you see something, we don't care if it's in your area or not. We want your input. In fact, we're going through some series of all company meetings on saying how can we really improve our customer experience. And we have different teams, and it's made up of IT and reception and accounting and sales and service that are coming together. And even though it's not one of our areas of expertise, the information and the suggestions that we've gotten from that is amazing. And it all goes towards getting that employee buy in of knowing, yes, you are in line with the company. So, mentorship program, team building exercises, these are all great. Let's go down to what are some ways that we can disengage employees. Inequality. And that inequality plays into not only, maybe you give your top performers the best assignments, or it could also be inequality of the distribution of workload. You are my best person, and I know I can trust you, Wendy. So here's more, and here's more, and here's more, because I'm not quite sure if I can trust anybody else. Wendy, are you feeling appreciated if I keep piling on the extra projects?
I'm feeling something that's not good.
So, yes, and not addressing negative employees, ignoring them, less training. What are some of the other responses? Promises that we do not keep. Absolutely. When we make promises that we don't keep, then we are losing our credibility, and then we are losing that employee engagement. And I love not actively asking employees what their interests lie in. So many times as managers, we assume that we know where a person wants to go. And that ties into where it leads to that conditionally disengaged, because there's poor coaching, because we're not asking them, what do you want to learn? Where do you want to go? We're telling them this is what you're going to do. Or we don't offer any of that coaching at all, and now boredom sets in. So, especially if you've had someone with a company for 5, 10, 20 years, it's easy to fall into that rut of, oh, they know exactly what they're doing. Do I really need to train them? And the answer is absolutely yes. So, we've talked to you about the three different types of categories that your employees are going to fall into: engaged, disengaged, or conditionally engaged. But what does employee engagement really mean? What's that definition?
So, we're going to define employee engagement as the emotional commitment that the employee has to the organization and its goals. And so, as leaders, we have to connect the dots between the employee and the goals to create that emotional commitment. It just doesn't happen automatically. So, for example, here at Omnia, we do engagement surveys, and time again, we see that employees want a sense of purpose and personal accomplishment from their jobs. So first off, we can start by making sure they understand how their jobs tie into the company's mission and how their role plays into the whole, like how it works together. All jobs are important to the organization, or you wouldn't have somebody doing it. So make sure that they feel that they don't feel that their job is, well, it's entry level. What does it really mean? Make sure that they understand how important it is into the whole. Also, and we got a lot of this in the poll question, but employees want employers to care about their professional growth as much as they do. And this does not always have to do with advancement, especially if you're in an organization that's smaller and those opportunities are scarce. That's okay. You can still focus on development. It's about building on knowledge and skills. And we're going to give you some tips on how to do that in a little bit. But the next as managers is we have to understand that not everyone is motivated by the same things. As a behavioral assessment company, we talk about what individuals need to feel engaged and motivated in their jobs and in their organizations. So, for example, in a sales department, you might have individuals, well, you will have individuals who are motivated by competition. They love contests and one upping the person in the next office. And everybody enjoys that type of competition and environment. Whereas another department where you have individuals who are more low key and cautious might not enjoy that at all. So if you try to set up contests in that department, they're going to be very demotivated by that. So they want to work towards team goals and have a common objective. So making sure that you understand that each person is different and tap into those motivators and hot buttons. And finally, communication is a huge part of employee engagement. I mean, it's really a huge part of everything. And it's often the biggest source of problems. And we're going to talk about communication even more. But as far as communication here with engagement, we want to talk about taking um, decisions. I'm sorry, I lost live webinar, lost my train of thought. But we want to explain why we make the decisions that we make, why we're taking an action that we're taking. We need to communicate the backstory to our employees as much as possible because it creates buy-in. Even when the decision isn't popular, explaining the action to employees can dispel any myths that might form. So when we fail to explain the decisions and actions to our employees, what happens is that they're left to fill in the blanks, and they really will do that. So they're going to create some false beliefs, and Kim is going to tell us a really impactful story about those false beliefs.
Absolutely. And a lot of times those false beliefs go to the negative. So no one wants to create a false belief where everything's rosy and sunshine and rainbows. It's always like management hates us, you know? So for instance, I was conducting an on-site employee engagement, some road mapping at a client's a few years ago, and automotive industry. And I spoke with every employee and they wanted to know, what do our employees feel about our culture? What do they like? What do they don't like? What would they keep but tweak? And as I was speaking with a particular group of service technicians, their overwhelming response was management doesn't care about us. All they care about is making money. And it kind of threw me for a little bit, to be quite frank, because everyone else I had talked to, they had very positive reactions. I had talked to senior leadership. I knew through our communication that they are committed and dedicated to their employees and care for them. So, here's a red flag. Well, why do you feel that way? Well, a few months ago we had a lift malfunction and it fell and bounced back up, and if the technician had been underneath it, he would have been dead, which is a huge safety issue. And so we asked for some additional equipment to be installed, which if that lift would have fell, it's a safeguard that it would catch it, and there's some different levels, and it may not stop it from completely going to the ground, but it would at least give the technician time to get out from underneath it. And they installed one and they haven't done any others. And when I asked what's going on, management's responses are, well, the lifts are expensive. So I just know that their money and their bonuses is more important than our safety. And going back to management and senior leadership and saying here is the perception, because everyone's perception is their reality. They were completely floored, and they're like, that's not the case at all. We have ordered those lifts for those safeguards for every single lift station, but they're on back order. And so it's not, the CEO was like, we need to change this perception now because that's not the case. I would never put money in front of my employees' safety or lives ever. And so we had to have some conversations about going back, and it's just like Wendy said, is communicating it to say, here's what we have, the restaurant back order, they're being installed, and then give updates. I know that we said they were going to be here in 2 weeks, but the manufacturer said it's going to be another 2 weeks. So now the employees feel like, okay, we matter. We're not just a number, and they're communicating with us. And what's crazy is that the employees that were sharing this started talking among themselves, and other people who hadn't had issues now were like, oh yeah, every little thing that mean it's all about the money for that manager, which wasn't the case at all. So we have to make sure that if we want that emotional commitment to the organization and its goals, as leaders, we have to be very clear about what we are doing, how we're doing it, and then sharing that insight. And then also recognizing that individuals are different. So while there's some commonalities between the groups, there's also some differences between the individual. And to really make sure that our employees are emotionally engaged, committed, and actively engaged with us, we have to recognize those differences. So, for instance, for me, I like latitude. Give me my job, tell me what my goal is, and then get out of my way. Let me do it. I don't necessarily need you to micromanage me. In fact, if you do that, that is going to be a complete demotivator. I want to, you know, give me my goal and charge. Let me go for it. But for Wendy, that is, are you motivated by that as much as I am?
No, definitely not. I mean, I prefer parameters. And of course, I don't like to be micromanaged. I think a lot of people don't, but I do like specific direction and instructions. And I think sometimes people can see that as micromanagement, especially if it's somebody who likes a lot of latitude. But I like very clear parameters. I like to know what the expectations are. And as much as possible, I really do appreciate specific instructions. And part of, in my head, I'm seeing that as well. Now I can do it right the first time instead of making my own decisions and then coming back and having the individual say, well, that's really not what I was picturing or how I wanted it to go. So that's just part of the reason why I prefer to operate with those parameters.
Right. And then I also like those leadership opportunities. So for me, I thrive in that ability to take charge of a project, to take charge of a group of individuals, to help motivate them, to help guide them. In fact, one of my, as I've have 20 plus years of management experience, both for people management and business development. And I love when I have the opportunity to mentor someone and grow them to be able to advance in their career. So give me those leadership opportunities. Tell me where I can cast vision and talk to people, to have them follow me. And that motivates me. That keeps me engaged. Wendy,
Yeah. I mean,
does it keep you?
no, 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 no. I typically prefer to be on what I call the individual contributor side. So I would like to be on the team, supporting it in a way that allows me to work independently. Sort of, I'm in charge of my own destiny, if you will, on that project, rather than having to take the responsibility for a bunch of other people, which might sound a bit weird since I am in a leadership position here. But that's just my preference and my comfort zone is I can let someone else take charge and then I'll go ahead and contribute to it in any way that I can. And that's just my preference.
Yes. So I drive her crazy sometimes when I come into her office and cast a vision. This is what we're going to do, and I just sold it. And
Like
Wendy
we don't do
usually
that.
goes, what?
No, absolutely. But I do like to, like you said, I like to catch the vision, is how I put that. So she's telling me what she's seeing and this project that we can do or this new product that we can develop. And I'm going to immediately start to think about the logistics and implementing that idea. And I'm motivated by those details and that process
And
versus the,
then if you can't tell, we have two very different energies. So even in our presenting style. So for me, I'm kind of over the top. I love that social energy. I feed off of brainstorming and having people listen to me. So even when we were preparing for this webinar, I'm like, I'm so excited. I hope we have like 100 people. It's great information. And I like to see the names and the people participating. In fact, when we first start off, and I'm like, oh, we only have like, it's 15 minutes till, and there's only 3 people in the room. We need more people because I want to talk to them. Meanwhile, Wendy is sitting in her office thinking, not that.
yeah. Well, I don't get my energy the same way, and a lot of your employees won't either. I get it from analytical tasks, so sort of heads down, concentrating on things facts and figures type of work or report writing, which I know will sound like snooze fest to Kim, but that's how I get my energy. Whereas social tasks tend to really deplete that energy. So after, probably after this, I need to take a little break. But so it is about looking at your employees and what drives and motivates them on a regular basis. So
Yeah,
analytical energy is definitely me.
yes, absolutely. And why are we going through the differences between Wendy and I? Because it's critical that you know the individual. So you have to engage the team, but it is not one size fits all. We are both very different. I'm the out of the box thinker. In fact, let me give me an idea, let me run with it, and I'm going to come up with something that's completely new. And sometimes, Wendy has to rein me back a little bit, right?
And I like to, yeah, exactly. I like to do that tactical planning and think about the steps that are involved to take an idea and make it happen. And so, yeah, it's definitely a different thinking style. And if your employee has that, there are certain things that you'll want to do to motivate that specific direction, for example, making sure that if you're putting them in a situation where they're going to be doing some brainstorming, that you let them know ahead of time so they can think it over. Because the last thing that I like is to be put into that situation cold. I want to have an opportunity to think it over so I can contribute in the meeting.
Absolutely. And each of us are very different. But if you haven't guessed, our skills and our natural behaviors complement each other because no one can be all things to all people all of the time. And as managers, it's critical that you know what motivates your individual contributor, what's going to keep that individual employee engaged. A great way of using it is behavioral assessments like Omnia. So now I understand what the individual, I know for Kim, I can come in and say, let's brainstorm. And I'm like, woohoo, let's do it. For Wendy, I need to say, I want to brainstorm about a topic, bring ideas, and we're going to talk about it on Monday afternoon so that I can maximize the success and the engagement and eliminate some of those frustrations that your employees are going to feel. But regardless of how the individual person is motivated, all employees share some common engagement points. First one is goals. No one wants to come into work and go, ooh, what are we doing here today? I'm just going to drift through life. They want to know what is our goal? How do I contribute? What does my work that I'm doing in my office, in my cubicle, in front of the client, how is that contributing to the common goal? I want to be a important role and factor in the company. And it doesn't matter if there's sales, service, or support who's completely behind the scenes. Everyone has to have a goal, and you have to, as managers, to keep them engaged, connect the dots between their role and the goals of the company.
Yeah, absolutely. And communication. I mean, you just can't stress this enough. And we're going to talk more about it. But the story that Kim told me about going there in the lift situation, I think about that all the time, especially when I'm interacting with my team. Communication is absolutely key. And explaining the reason behind decisions is so important. And I never realized it until hearing that story. So communication is huge, but also communicating basic things and making sure that they have all of the information they need just to do the basic tasks of the job. Or if you're giving them a new project or you're assigning them something that they've never done before, making sure that you're asking them if there's anything that they need, what skills do they feel might be lacking, asking questions, communicating with your team, and figuring out what it is that they need to do the best job possible.
Absolutely. And once you communicate it, you have to recognize your employees. Now, how you recognize them depends on the individual. And some of you share that in the poll, like maybe it is a metric based bonus because some people are like, I've got bills to pay and mouths to feed, show me the money. For other people, that bonus may not be as important to them, but they want to have that verbal recognition. They want to know maybe uh, time with them. I'm going to take you to lunch, or We're going to recognize the team as a whole is important. So having those recognition programs and have them, some of them can be very informal, but some of them need to be a formal process of how are we going to recognize them. Sometimes it's then the annual evaluation. Maybe you're doing some awards, or different ways that peers can recognize each other. But having that program and then communicate it. And you can't recognize only at the annual evaluations. It can't be a one and done. People need to know that they're valued throughout the year, because if they begin to feel like, oh, I'm just a number, and another company, your competitor, calls them and tells them how wonderful they are and we can't wait to work for you and we're excited to work with you, they're going to leave you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then professional development. Everybody wants professional development, regardless of the position, the type of person. This is a commonality. So professional development is key. And like I said before, it doesn't have to do with just advancement. It does just have to do with talking to your employees, seeing where they want to go, what they want to learn, what new skills they would like to add to their arsenal, and then finding a way to get there and making it a continuous process. And we're going to talk more about that with some very specific tips on how to do the professional development piece. But first, we're going to talk about a company that does a great job at a bunch of things engaging people. Sorry, and now you got the sneak peek.
Uh, Absolutely. So, we're going to look at two companies. We're going to start with Southwest, because Southwest, airlines, if you know anything about them, they're all about the fun and engaging their employees and employee engagement. And one thing that I find very interesting about the culture and how they engage their employees is it starts from the moment of creating a position to hire for. They are looking for engaged employees who embrace the culture, and understand it, because Southwest is very different from every other airline that's out there. In 2016, they hired around 7,200 workers for more than 300,000 applications. So 7,200. The sheer amount of applications that they have is remarkable to me. In addition, their hiring process takes 4 to 6 months for certain positions. But what I found even more staggering is that for their ground operations positions, and these are the people who, God bless them, are out in all types of weather, snow, rain, loading and unloading your luggage onto the airplanes, all times of day and night. So it is not that glamorous position that you see shown on TV commercials and TV shows. They are working hard. They had about 117,000 applications for that position, and they hired just 3,000 people for one of the toughest positions in the airline industry. And why are people wanting to work for Southwest? Because they have an emotional commitment to the company brand. Southwest has created the values, and they talk about fun, and they give their employees and empower their employees in ways that will allow them to assist the customer. And it goes right back to our quote that we said, highly engaged employees make the customer experience. Disengaged employees break it. When you have highly engaged employees, they are going to go above and beyond for their clients and their customers. And, we live in Florida and we live in hurricane season. And Wendy, didn't you have an experience with Southwest during hurricane season?
I absolutely did. We were going to Hilton Head, and I have a bunch of friends that come together from all over the country. And of course, Hurricane Matthew had come through, so we had to change our venue, if you will. So we moved it down to Sarasota. But my friends were still flying Southwest into Jacksonville. And when they got to Jacksonville, they were renting a car and they were going to drive 4 hours to get down to Sarasota. The Southwest rep had overheard them talking about this and planning, and they literally put them on a flight to Tampa. They had some available seats, didn't charge them anything, put them on this flight and got them to Tampa without, saving them basically 4 to 5 hours of travel time. I was so impressed with that, and I'm very committed to Southwest since that time. So, yeah, I thought that was great. And it's because they empowered their employees to make a decision like that.
Absolutely. And employee engagement starts with empowerment as well, starts from the moment of hiring and creating that application, but it also comes from creating that culture of employee engagement. And Disney is great at this. So when you think of Disney, the tagline that you think of is
The happiest place on earth.
the happiest place on earth. And who makes it the happiest place? Well, it's not necessarily the weather because the weather can be
Hot.
blazing hot here in Florida during the summer months, and it's not necessarily the lines because theme park lines can take uh, forever and ever and ever in a day, but it's about what Disney has done from the moment of onboarding and training with their employees to create this culture. So back in the 1960s, Disney created a set of standards to operationalize how their cast members, which are their employees, should create happiness. So we have a tagline, the happiest place on earth, but how do we create it? Well, we could just call our employees cast members and our customers guests, and it's a matter of semantics, but how do we operationalize this? How do we give our employees something concrete that allows them to learn from this? So they created four: safety, courtesy, show, and capacity. And I was really shocked that the show was number three, but it makes sense. So when they think about, it's prioritized in the order. So if you have someone who is standing on a guest that's standing on a trash can to get the best picture of the castle, the um, cast members are empowered to go over and say, ma'am, why don't you step down? Because if you stand here, you get a better view. And it doesn't matter if they are supposed to be in Frontierland or Fantasyland or Tomorrowland and they're in an area that's outside of their costume, they can still say it was a safety issue. And so they've empowered it. It's something they prioritize the standards of operations. They've made them easy to remember, and they have been created as a checkpoint for excellence in strategic planning. And whenever new senior leadership has come on board, cast members, management has linked arms and said, no, do not take away our set of standards. They are emotionally committed to these goals. They are engaged to these goals. Now they've added and revised to them. They've added a couple of key action points. So under safety is I will do everything I can to ensure the safety of the guest. And then underneath that, they've given them two or three behaviors. So one, it may be like, I will read and follow the safety policies and procedures, but it's simple, it's clean, and it allows you as a manager to consistently engage with your employees to say, here's what we're looking for. Here's how you're going to do it. If I'm not around and it is a gray area, refer to these set of standards. When employees have that, no matter how much they want latitude or how much they want guidelines, they're given that parameters and then they can move forward. And when I know what's expected out of me, I'm going to soar. I'm going to be engaged as an employee and I'm going to move forward with it. So it's critical that we have to understand what everybody wants in the organization. And so
Mhm.
we've talked about how, one, do you know what your culture is? If you don't know what your culture is, then we need to take some cultural surveys and we can help you with that. But once you create that, then you've got to start from the onboarding process. You've got to start from the interview process. What are we looking for? What are those natural behavioral traits that are going to be successful in this role? How do we craft our job postings to pull in those engaged employees? And then we have to onboard them. And all of this ties back into engaging your employee from the very beginning. So, how do we engage employees and onboard them, whether it's in a new job or in a new role? Wendy?
So I think onboarding is so important because what happens when somebody joins an organization, that first day, that first week, first couple of weeks, there's a lot of insecurity. And I think if employers are leaving their employees to sort of flounder about as they start, they start to feel buyer's remorse, if you will. What have I done? Why have I come here? Did I make a mistake? I left a really great place and now I'm here and they're ignoring me, or I haven't even been taken to lunch. I don't know where anything is around the office. And so immediately you're starting off by not building an emotional commitment. So onboarding is really that first step to making the emotional commitment and doing simple things. They don't have to be expensive, they don't have to be elaborate. Some of the things that we do here is when an employee comes into their office, first we have a little bit of decoration, like welcome aboard, welcome to the team, just some little simple sign. But we also put on their desk a little welcome packet, a map to nearby restaurants. We tell them, the different grocery stores that are around, anywhere that they need to go. We talk about some of our housekeeping items in the building and in the office so that they know, we have free coffee or we have this and here's the refrigerators and you know what you can use and what you can't use. Also, we will give them a tour, introduce them to everybody. We typically take them to lunch on the first day, and if that ends up not being possible, then we'll always do it, like, say, the second day. And then we give them a schedule, a very defined training schedule, so that they feel secure. They know that we've thought about this before they came on board. We're considering them. This isn't something that we just slap together, but this is serious. This is their career. We take it seriously. We're excited they're there and they're going to love being here. So, by starting off with that onboarding experience, you're building that emotional commitment. But at that point, really, your work is just starting. And so we're going to talk about communication. Like we said before, communication is absolutely key. And before we were talking about it in the context of explaining decisions. But right now, we're also going to talk about it in the context of making sure that your employees understand their responsibilities when they come on board. Are those responsibilities clear? Have you sat down and gone over the position description with the employee, setting them at ease at what's going to be expected, how their training is going to go, how they're going to be reviewed, or if you have a 90-day review period, what that's going to look like, what types of communication is going to be involved, the training, all of that. And then feedback, that's part of communication. Feedback is something that, of course, in the beginning we should do. I mean, almost every single day we should be providing feedback to our employees. But throughout tenure, you want it to be a continuous process. You want it to be frequent, you want it to be authentic, and you want it to be consistent so that it's part of your culture because employees need that feedback. Also, empowering, we talked a lot about that, when they can make decisions, how they can make decisions, and then career path. And again, this is so much more than advancement. It's about building skills, building knowledge, and building career confidence in your employees. So, what you can do, some specific steps that you can take, is assign special projects. Give the person the opportunity to train or mentor other people. Let them lead a meeting, or let them choose a project if that's something that's available in your company. You've got different projects going on. Let them choose which one they want to be a part of. And these are ways that you can develop people and put them on a career path towards building their skills and maybe at some point onto an advancement track. Yeah.
Absolutely. And why is communication important for engagement? You're like, okay, you've talked about it quite a bit. Well, here is why. When we talk about communication, employee engagement all starts with that feeling of knowing my voice is heard. So, in a recent survey of over 1,000 full-time employees, 81% said they would rather join a company that values open communications than perks like health plans. 15% of those surveyed said that they're very satisfied with the communication. So, 15%, when you think about it, if you have 85% of your workforce that has the potential to leave, either because they're actively looking, they are passively, casually looking, or they're just, if a better offer comes along, then talk is cheap, I may go for it. That
Mhm.
directly correlates with the 15% of employees that are very satisfied with the communication. So we've been talking about it so much is because it is critical. We have to make sure that we are talking with their employees and making sure that they understand what we're looking for. Also, when they were talking about that, when talking about communication with managers, 15% believe that managers highly value their feedback, while 58% said their managers value their feedback, moderately, slightly, or not at all. And 62% of those surveyed share their professional goals with managers just a few times of a year. So once again, if you want to engage, if you want to keep your performers from going to the dark side, from going to your competitors, you have to talk with them. And I know sometimes that's hard because it's like, okay, how often do I need to talk with them? Or they've been with us for 20 years. Why do I need to continue to say something to them? Because goals change, actions, strategic planning changes. We have to make sure that what we're communicating is important to the employee, but we also have to understand how we communicate for it. So, very quickly, looking at this picture, what do you see? So, on the box on the left, go ahead and type in what your perception of the leader on the left. On the right-hand box, go ahead and type in what is your perception of the leader on the right. So maybe you think friendly, listening, whatever it may be, go ahead and type them in. So open, content, they're coaching, fun to work with. I like on for the box on the right, perception on the right, attentive, skeptical, hesitant. So, Wendy, when you saw this, tell me what your perception of the leader on the left, what was it?
So, I mean, I sort of will start with the one on the right because that was the one that I saw as being more open and considering what I was saying. Like, so somebody who was really trying to listen actively to what my problem was, analyzing the situation so that she can solve the problem. So, what that led me to say about the person on the left was that it just seemed, and I'm a very analytical, sort of dry person. So, I saw this as being a little bit fluffy and like, okay, she's just like smiling, like, okay, when are you going to leave my office? So, I saw it as a totally opposite, which is interesting because it's about perception. And I think I would have really gravitated to the person on the right. That that was me.
Well, and it's interesting because I looked at the person on the right and I was like, she is, I told Wendy, I think she's giving the side eye a little bit. Of okay, when are you going to get out of my office? So we have to be very careful about when we're communicating, watching what our body language is saying and how we say it. So seriously, come by my office anytime, or seriously, come by my office anytime, and knowing how the individual's conversations are. So I know, like for me, if I'm talking with Wendy, I need to make sure that I'm listening more and being a little bit more analytical. But if I have someone else coming in my office, we may be, yeah, come by anytime, and I'm smiling and I'm laughing and I'm joking with them, and we're still getting a lot done. But it goes back to I've got to make sure I'm presenting myself so that I'm connecting with my employee, because the person on the right would not connect with me. I'm thinking she's weighing every word and looking to find something wrong with me. Whereas I like the person who's smiling. It goes back to perception.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that there are rules that we should all follow, of course. So when an employee is coming to talk to us, there are always things that we do no matter what. And that's not answer the phone. Don't be responding to emails or looking at your computer unless you're conveying that to them before they come in. So if you have an open door policy, then of course you want to be welcoming. But if you're in the middle of something, as you will often be, you might want to just say, hey, just give me 1 second. I'm just going to finish typing this email and then I'm all yours. So making sure again that's communication and just being polite and letting that person know that you're going to finish up. But then once they come in and they start talking, then everything else you don't pay attention to. And I think that's just a common rule that we would all follow.
Absolutely. And even though we're having this body language conversation about how we engage our employees, we also have to make sure that we're setting boundaries for other employees so our actions match our words. So, for example, if you have that employee that's always barging into your office, regardless of who else may be in there, you have to set those standards and those expectations that say, if I have someone in my office, unless it's an emergency, and a critical, not what you may consider an emergency, because I've got to talk to you right now, but a true customer or safety emergency, then I'm going to stay focused on that person. Don't stand at my door and wave at me and make motions and try to mouth something to me, because now you're causing me to disengage from the person in front of me. So as managers, we have to make sure that if we're truly engaging with our employees, that we're engaging with the people that are in front of us. Because as a leader, engagement is critical. We have to recognize them. We have to communicate. And we've talked a lot about this. We recognize those individual strengths and challenges. We know what those potential obstacles and motivators and demotivators are. And it's critical for us to communicate the vision, the expectations, the feedback. We have to be able to have that. But for me, the anchor to all of that is the accountability. If we're not holding our employees accountable, then everything that we do to recognize them, everything that we do to communicate, is going to just fall flat on its face. Because for employee engagement, as I said, we wanted goals. So as leaders, we have to hold them accountable. We've got to state those non-negotiables. If there's conflict, we've got to facilitate that, because people are motivated by a sense of purpose and personal accomplishments. We see this time and time and time again when we conduct the employee engagement surveys for our clients and analyze their results, that people say, these are my primary motivators. I want to know that I have a sense of purpose. But if there's no metrics to achieve that, and there's anything to say you've reached your goal, then there isn't anything to recognize, to celebrate, or to even engage or to motivate them. So that engagement disappears. So you've got to hold them accountable, but don't forget to celebrate the wins, because this is so often overlooked, right, Wendy?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's recognition. And I think a lot of times it gets overlooked because people think it's going to be expensive or time consuming. And that's really not the case. You definitely want to have a recognition plan, and it can be sort of three pronged. So, formal, which will take some planning and it might be company wide. And then informal, that's off the cuff and unplanned. And then, most importantly, your small day to day continuous recognition that's provided in the form of positive feedback as warranted. So just make sure that it's timely to whatever achievement the employee has made. Make it authentic and make it specific, because there are a lot of employees that want to know exactly what it is they did well. And then there's just lots of little ideas that you can do: trivia days, potlucks, personal thank yous, community involvement, charity events, a kudos board. If you've got off-site employees like telecommuters, you can do virtual coffee chats and using Google Hangout. You can send pictures of people's offices and say, hey, guess the picture. And I read a really cool idea where you can write down on some post-it notes like 4 or 5 different little why you appreciate this person and hide it around their workspace so that they're uncovering them over time. I thought that was super cute. Might have to try that in the future. But it's about celebrating the wins and letting them know that you're thinking about that and appreciating that.
Oh, I love that idea. And we
Mhm.
have some ideas that you can download at the end of our session if you're like, oh, these are great ideas, but I don't know what to do. Well, we give you some of those. We also, as managers, when you're looking to engage your employees, and you want to make sure that you are staying out of the comfort zone. And we've given you ways to motivate your team, but this is really truly for you. You have to be consistent in your communication and think outside the box to really connect with your employees. You've got to listen to them. And then you have to constantly evolve. How am I engaging them? What is my leadership? If you don't have professional development, then that's something that you need to add to yourself. What are my professional development goals so that I can move forward and help and grow my employees? Because if I'm not growing, then I can't help them grow. And if you don't know where to start, with employee engagement, ask your employees. And guess what? This is something that Omnia helps you with. We can ask them, what do you love about the company? What do you need from management? What are your ideas? We give you those metrics to learn from it, and then say, okay, now let's put a plan in place to move forward with it. And as we're wrapping up, just some final thoughts. Employee engagement, keeping them from your competition, starts first with hiring right the first time. You've got to live out your core values, just like Disney does. Where do we want to go? And build those relationships at work. No one wants to be just a number. And then as a manager for employee engagement, you've got to strive to be available, you've got to be consistent, and you have a mentor. Wouldn't you agree, Wendy?
Absolutely. I think being selective as you hire is so important because it's showing your employees that you care about who you're bringing into the team. So that hire right the first time, I always think just be selective because you can lose people who are tired of picking up the slack from bad hires.
And if you don't know what to do that, then Omnia can assist you with that. We are a full service consulting company. We specialize in behavioral assessments, but as we talk about how to engage, you may say, I don't know what my leadership style is. I don't know what my individual reports are. We can help you with that. Because, as the great Jedi Master Yoda once said, do or do not. There is no try. Employee engagement is the same way. It's a commitment. You have to just embrace it. So I'm going to go ahead, and I know we're right at 1:30. Open it up for any questions that you may have. If you have any questions, go ahead and type in the box. Also, under takeaways, you can download the presentation as well as some motivation tips. And under the helpful links, you can connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, join us on LinkedIn, and let us know, did you love us or did you hate us? Because we always want to make sure that these webinars are here for you, and we want to make sure that this topic is what we're going to, something that you're going to benefit from us. So once again, go ahead, type in any questions that you have in the question box. And as people are typing, Wendy, is there any final words that you'd like to say?
Oh my gosh, the final words of wisdom was just that be selective piece because I think it's so important because it is showing people that you care about who you bring on board. And I love that as my takeaway from that. And then some of the recognition tips I thought were really cool. So hopefully you did too.
I did too, absolutely. So once again, and, and Leanne, I'm glad that you have a great Domino. So um, once again, let us know if you love us or hate us. If you need any assistance, engagement surveys, questions, our contact information is in the box. We're going to leave this open so you can download those takeaways, click on any of our recorded webinars, and we hope to see you next month, June 21st, with the high cost of unhappy employees and what to do about it. So, on behalf of Wendy and myself, thank you. Have a wonderful day, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye, everyone.